And we have to realize too, many of our kids, that's what they grew up with. Drew and myself, we didn't grow up with a world of screens. We had to adapt to them. We didn't carry it around. We didn't have it driving in our cars. Whereas many of our kids, they've grown up with this. In a world where kids can stream endless shows and games at the top of a screen, how do we make books just as exciting? So, today we're going to be talking about raising readers in a streaming world, strategies that actually work. And we're going to talk about these specific things. First things first, we're going to be talking about setting the stage, the reading versus streaming dilemma. Next up, strategies that actually work. And then finally, we're going to chat about dad wins, success stories, and encouragement. So, Drew, what's been going on today and what's up?
Well, thanks, Ed. I don't think I've been reading enough. So maybe this is more of a call to action for me as a dad and promoting some more reading in my kids. So yeah, that's what's been going on, at least as far as the reading topic goes. What's going on with you?
Just enjoying, I guess, some good weather. Yeah, I'll take it whenever we can get it. You know, maybe one time I'll come on and I'll have a little bit of growth. Maybe we'll do that together. I don't know. Okay, we'll leave it at that. That's going a bridge too far. All right, let's get serious. You're watching Dad Central, a parenting podcast to reduce stress and build confidence in fatherhood. As always, our show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. So before we kick into it, what do you think? You shared that you don't feel you read enough, but any other comments before we start breaking it down today?
Uh, any other comments? I would say when I look back on where I've seen positive growth in my life, I can actually connect it to the times when I spent more time reading. And so some of the most effective solutions to challenges I was experiencing in my life have come from me taking the time to read a book, an article. My mom, whenever or as I was growing up, she always put books in my hand, meaning that she would buy me a book. It could be a time in my life. Maybe I was turning 13. She'd buy me a book related to baseball. I was playing baseball, seemed relevant. But it wasn't just any book on baseball. It had a message or a meaning behind it. But baseball was the hook for me. So books have been, I guess, pretty significant. And yeah. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Good stuff. And just to foundation our theme today, just want to say that we want to say that helping dads raise kids who love reading, even when screens are competing for attention, we want to provide practical, real world strategies that work. So let's talk about first things first: reading versus streaming dilemma. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we live in a very digital world. I've for years talked about, I think, the dangers of screen, which are all been validated through lots of the research. And so but the, I think, important mindset shift is that, screens aren't going anywhere. So rather than, we'll say, fight them, the more you learn to use them as a tool or uh, build them into ways that are positive uses and tap into the natural curiosity and desire or skills of your kids, the better. So I think and also they're designed by brilliant PhDs who understand exactly how our brains work, and so they're going to be attractive to us. We also they're valuable to us. We use screens. You and I are looking at a screen, collaborating over a screen. So it's inevitable that kids are going to be drawn to because it's in their world, right? And so, um, yeah. So I think that's the reality. I guess there are other things that can consider that, sometimes if we see our children so connected to the screen and they're maybe not doing the reading that they need to actually develop their brains, to develop their capacity to read. And we know that moving forward in life, typically, your reading skills are going to be important. There's an old adage that, leaders are readers. And so if you want your child to develop and become, leading of themselves in their own life, there's some fear that might be, man, the kids aren't they're not going to achieve if I don't see them reading. Anyways, those are a couple thoughts. How about you?
Yeah, I want to add on what you just said there about some dads having that concern if if they're not reading, they'll fall behind. But you know what? We can reframe that saying reading isn't competing, it can coexist with streaming because the truth said a lot of things are on screen these days. We can be reading them on screens. Again, it's what you're reading on screens, but again, the reading aspect can be adopted to the screen. And we have to realize too, many of our kids, that's what they grew up with. Like that's their world. Drew and myself, we didn't grow up with a world of screens. We had to adapt to them. So we have to realize that we're coming from two different spheres or ways of life that uh, Drew and myself, and I'm probably sure a number of people out there listening or watching this, we didn't grow up with screens. Like if we did, we had at one TV in one room, and that's it. We didn't have it in our hands. We didn't carry it around. We didn't have it driving in our cars. Whereas many of our kids, they've grown up with this, so it can coexist with the streaming, reading, and streaming. So it can be done. What's our next thing in regards to strategies that actually work? What strategies have you had to work, or maybe share some things that haven't worked, not only worked? Drew?
Yeah. Uh, well, I mean, start by, the most basic leadership principle is people do what people see. So if I want my children to read, what do I need to do? I've got to read myself and they've got to see me reading. So as always, model the behavior. And so an example that works is, we started doing that. I mean, I think we've done that because from the time my kids have been young, I read to them pretty often. And as I said, throughout my life, I've read pretty regularly. But now I'd say I'm even more intentional in reading in front of them, because I don't read to them as much. But it's something that Chris and I have talked about. We actually want to do that more, and we want to do it as a family reading time. And so, what did last year is that, as soon as kids came home from school, they finished off kind of their routine. They unpacked their lunches, they washed their lunch container, they put their backpacks away, and kind of got to settle down. But after that, we would all sit down together on the couch, and it's reading time. So we would all read. I'd have a book. They'd each have a book or of their choice, and we would read for 20 minutes. It was some of the really most wonderful times I had because it was just very peaceful. Everyone was just there. We were all together, which is also a really wonderful thing. You've got a pretty big family. It's great to have all of us right there. And so, and inevitably that would lead to other things and other forms of connection afterwards. So that's, one example just for me. Um, but there are a couple other suggestions I think are practical. Would you like to jump in and offer some of those?
Yeah, one of the things is creating book moments. So replace one short screen session with a family reading time, like you've mentioned. Also, mix media wisely. So pair streaming with books, like e.g., an example, read the story before or after watching the movie adaptation. Leverage your interests. So find out what your children like or children like, and get books that align with their interests, so that would make it easy. It enhances the opportunity for them to read because it's something they like. I want to go back to what you shared, Drew, about and want you to talk about being intentional in regards to strategies or being intentional about reading, making it an intentional practice. Because again, our children are going to model a lot of times what we do. So, do you want to talk about maybe the intentionality in regards to having those strategies in place and being consistent with them?
Yeah, I'll do that briefly. So one, we have books in the house, like in the family room. There are built-in bookcases around the fireplace, and so they're filled with books. Many kids' books, but also the books that we as adults have read. And so intentionally placing books in and around the home in strategic places. And also, you know, not only in that reading time, but making sure that, let's say it's a weekend, I take time to pick a book and sit down and read it for a few minutes. Maybe it's more than a few minutes, maybe it's half an hour, but maybe it's only 10 minutes. The bottom line is they see me on a regular basis with a book in my hands and actually consuming the content. Next to that is actually talking about the book. Hey, in this book, here's what I read, or I read this story and it was in this book here, and I'll even point to the book. So just making it part of the day to day interactions and that they see me. That's what I mean by intentional, or setting aside extra time, or saying, okay, this weekend, here's what we're going to do, and this is where Chris and I are working on, and then before we do our movie night, we're actually going to say we're all going to sit down. We want to read this story to you guys, and it's obviously a story that's aligned with a moral, a message, something that we feel is important for them to hear and understand, and hopefully it'll spark some conversation. Or it might just be like, all right, are we done yet? So we can just watch the movie. Who knows? But the point is, we want to intentionally put the right messages in front of our children because truthfully, we know the world's not doing it. We know other people aren't doing it. School's not doing it. So we need to make sure the right messages that align with our values are consistently in front of our children because we know children learn what they live.
Fully
Does that
agree,
answer your
100%.
question?
Yeah, well done. Right from stem to stern. And the only other thing I'm at, especially if you're doing the reading with kids that are younger, make it fun. Be animated, read aloud with voices, and let your children choose the story. You
Oh, yeah.
get,
These are all so good.
yeah, it's all really good sharing and a lot of good examples here too. So finally, we're going to end up about dad win success stories and encouragement. I know Drew, you had shared some of the things that you do with your family. Can you highlight on one there was a win out of that one of those practical tools that you shared with us? There was a winning moment.
I don't know if I can point to a winning moment, but uh, I can say that one, we haven't always done it perfect, obviously, uh, and sometimes you get resistance, you get pushback, or you get I'm not interested, or I don't like this, or don't like that. But it's all read on their own without you dictating it in terms of a hey, here's the reading time together. And often I will see our kids just on their own reading. Some love to read more than others, and that's fine because they're all different. But them choosing that is really rewarding. So I'd say that's a win.
No, I
One other point I just thought of, I don't want is that taking your kids to the library, which we didn't talk about, is also a great experience. And I used to take the kids to the library a lot when they were young, and even now, my daughter, Jada, she's been going to the library more because she's the one who hasn't always enjoyed reading when she was younger. But now that she's getting into it, she's like, "Dad, can you take me to the library?" Absolutely, 100%. Let's go there and let them explore the world of books and have fun with it.
And it's interesting because libraries are one of the most unrecognized and underutilized resources for a lot of people. There is so much there, not only for our kids, but for adults. There's so much of
Yes.
it in our libraries. So I think it's a really good point you added on to that. So as we wrap it up today, the three things that we covered was setting the stage, the reading versus streaming dilemma, strategies that actually work, and then finally, dad wins success stories and encouragement. So let's realize you don't have to fight screens, blend them with books. Then kids read more when dads read with them and model the habit. And then making reading personal, playful, and connected to their world. And you're, we just want to share you're planting seeds today that grow into a lifelong love of learning tomorrow. So, Drew, any other, would you like to add a resource to our family?
Yeah. So we'll do two things. One, I'll just share a story of a dad that I've recently met, and he came from difficult circumstances. and he talked about the hardship of his youth, but then around 12 or 13, really saying like, I have to change this. And in a few short years, because he's not even 30 yet, he has. And you know how he's done it? Like in reading, by reading and finding resources where he can learn and grow and take himself and change himself. But as a result, has changed his circumstances. And so I just want to say that's an encouragement to me that, this is important. And if you can invest in it for yourself and for your children, there's, I think, huge rewards. The resource I'd like to offer is that we have created something called the Confident Dad Bundle. And in it, one of the resources is a dad's reading toolbox. It is tips, guidance, stories, recommendations for children from birth all the way up to grade 5. And it's giving dads in very simple bite sized pieces exactly what to do to help your children develop the reading skills and help you read to them. So the Dad's Confident Bundle is our resource I recommend.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And I'm going to slip in
Oh,
three.
Confident Dad's Bundle.
Okay. Good stuff. I'm going to slip in three quick things before we end it off today. Remember, one, screens don't have to be the enemy, they can be tools that lead back to reading. Two, consistency matters more than perfection. 10 minutes of reading beats none. And then finally, the single biggest influence is dad's example. When you read dad, they will read, as Drew just shared. So, as always, we want to say thank you for taking time to listen or watch Dad Central. And as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace, and we'll catch you soon. Thanks.